Today is day one of this November 2025 7-day session. I'm going to be reading from a book entitled Illuminating Silence, Insights on the Path of Chinese Zen by Master Shen Yan and Dr. John H. Crook. Shen Yan, of course, a very well-known Chan teacher, born in 1930, and I believe he died in 2009. I know Roshi went to Taipei, or to Taiwan, I think to Taipei, where Shen Yan had a huge temple that was built there, and went for the dedication, and it was pretty amazing. And when Roshi came back, he had a copy of, not exactly this book, but a book with a lot of the same material, and he gave it to me. I've loved it ever since. John Crook is the person, the teacher actually, who put this book together. He was a disciple and the first Western sanctioned teacher of Shen Yan. He lived in Wales, in England. Another evidently very fine person. When Roshi Kapleau died in 2004, I got a call from, I don't know why I was answering the phone, but at the center, I took a call from John Crook, expressing his condolences and the respect that he and I think Shen Yan as well had for Roshi Kapleau, especially mentioned his strong moral character. You wouldn't think that would be remarkable, moral character, but it's not found everywhere in Western Zen. I want to say a little bit about Shen Yan. I'm not going to go through his whole autobiography, but just to pick out a few things. He was born, as I said, in 1930. He was born into a family of poor farmers who lived in the countryside outside Shanghai. And his father was a peasant, didn't own land, worked on the land of others. And Shen Yan says he was a kind man, and I never saw him angry. Seems that's pretty remarkable. I know my children saw me angry, and I saw my parents angry. Said both my parents were intelligent, but my father said very little, while my mother was more forthcoming. I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters. My brothers remained on the land, and none of my brothers or sisters was interested in becoming a monk or a nun. So Shen Yan was the only one from his family. And I'm not going to go through the whole story of how he became a monk. Interesting though it is, he had very little instruction when he was young. Just do what you're told and figure it out. Maybe that's not such a bad way. Sometimes I think maybe we have too much instruction. Says, we practiced meditation but without adequate instruction. I simply did not know what I was supposed to be doing. I puzzled over this so much that I became a great bag of doubt. Only when the bottom fell out of the barrel were we allowed to see the master, but nobody seemed to know what this meant, and my doubts could not be resolved at this time. The war years were very bad. When the exiled Chinese government went to Taiwan, I was in the army and went with them. So between the ages of 18 and 28, I was a soldier. There was no way I could leave the army between 1949 and 1959. After that, I became a monk again and lived in a temple in Taiwan and edited the magazine Humanity. I was in training, of course, and attended retreats. The great doubt persisted. I was constantly wondering what enlightenment or Buddhahood was. There were so many contradictions in the teachings that I could make no sense of them. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. Then he tells a story of an insight that he had. He said, when I was 28, I had a profound experience of dropping the mind. I had been practicing a lot and had had some small experiences, yet all these questions kept running through my head. I went on retreat in a monastery in southern Taiwan where a famous monk, Ling Yuan, was visiting. One night, he and I were sharing the same sleeping platform. Seeing that he was meditating, I sat with him. These questions were going round and round in a circle, one leading to another. They were all about the nature of vexations, life, and death. After some hours, it was past midnight, and these questions became intolerable. I asked the master whether I could ask him a question. He said yes. But when I started, there was this sudden flow of questions. Like water, they all poured out of my mouth. It went on and on for 2 or 3 hours. I really felt I needed answers from this monk who seemed free and easy in himself. All he did was to listen. He said nothing, or simply asked any more. It was very strange. I had started with one question, and suddenly there was this endless flow. It was the great ball of doubt. Finally, the master suddenly sighed, lifted his hand, and struck the bed hard. "Put it down," he said. Suddenly, my mind seemed to snap. I was pouring with sweat and felt a great weight suddenly lifted from me. There was nothing there. It seemed that there was no problem anywhere in the world. Everything had gone. We simply sat on, not saying a word. I was extremely happy. The next day, the whole world was fresh, as if I were seeing it for the first time. Then he says, in the practice of meditation, it is not possible to see the nature. That's the term that Shengen uses for the Japanese word kensho. It's not possible to see the nature through willing it or even intending it. You have to let go into purposeless practice. If there is purpose, the discriminating mind is active and the ego is present. You just work hard on your method. It is not waiting. It is not even not waiting. You hear this advice repeatedly. Have to get the idea of progress, accomplishment, set that aside. Just do the practice for the sake of the practice. Don't try to run the show. It's funny when you see yourself trying to make things happen. And we all do that, right? Have faith. Simply doing the practice is all that's required. We're not in charge of the results. Later on, Shengen did a solitary retreat for 6 years, living in a small hut that looked out onto a cliff, staying there the whole time. It says, all the time I felt calm and settled as if I had come home. I ate 1 meal a day of wild potato leaves, which I planted myself. He not only sat, but also did reading and study. And says, after 6 years, I had written several books and learned to read Japanese. I then stopped my retreat and went to Japan for further studies, taking a doctorate in Buddhist literature at Risho University in Tokyo. I also went on retreats, especially with Bantasugu Roshi, a disciple of Harada Roshi. Of course, that's the Harada Roshi that P.K. Roshi Kapleau studied with. This was Bantasugu. It says, I attended winter-long retreats at his temple in the harsh environment of northern Japan. He was particularly scathing about my learning and studying at university. When I left him, he told me to go and teach in America. I complained that I did not know English. He said, do you think Zen is taught with words? Why worry about words? So this book, the heart of this book, is talks that Sheng gave at a retreat in Wales at the home of John Crook. Actually, John Crook explains their relationship here in his introduction. So let me read from that. Wales was doing what it knows best. The rain was pelting down into a dark night. The farmside stream was rushing tumultuously downhill, and the ash twigs lashed together above the house. Indoors, a fire crackled in the hearth, and the first arrivals for the retreat were finding their way damply to bed places in attics and the neighboring barn. Suddenly a cry went up, "He's here!" A battered Volkswagen van had pulled up in the muddy yard, and as I opened the front door, a very tired Chan master was getting a shoe full of water as he stepped out. He had just completed some 50 hours of air travel and the long drive from Heathrow to reach us. Although extremely tired, he warmed up in front of the fire, inspected his accommodation in the house, and quickly began to appreciate the company. Within an hour, he had grasped the reins and begun the first Chan retreat led by a master at the Minwood. This is John Crook's home. It's a Welsh word. I had Errol show me how to pronounce it once, but obviously hasn't stuck. I had first heard of Master Sheng Yen during a visit to Hong Kong in 1985 to pay my respects to my original teacher in Zen, the Venerable Shi Yen Wai, the director of Po Lin Monastery on Landau Island. Although I had several marvelous last meetings with him, it was clear that due to his age and deafness, he was at the end of his teaching career. It seemed important to begin the search for a younger master from whom I could receive guidance. I was visiting a Buddhist bookshop downtown when I came across a copy of Getting the Buddha Mind. It's a book by Sheng Yen. Indeed, I could hardly avoid it, since it was the only title in English there. I much enjoyed reading this work, and I realized that, rather than searching around in the Far East, it would be easier to cross the Atlantic to sit with Master Sheng Yen in his New York center. It's a center in Queens. After I had attended 2 Chan 7 retreats with him and enjoyed several lengthy and highly constructive personal conversations, he kindly consented to come to Britain to run a retreat for those who, for some years, had been pursuing the Dharma with me in Western Zen retreats at my small Welsh farmhouse. This part of the book consists primarily of the 20 talks that Master Sheng Yen delivered to us on different occasions during the ensuing retreat. When the retreat closed, he requested me to make a book out of these recorded talks because he had given us a much more detailed presentation than was usual on such events. He told us he had unpacked his bags and let us view all his wares. In fulfilling this task, I have therefore had the pleasure of receiving his instruction many times over as I wrestled with problems of presentation. Chan students call their master Shifu, meaning teacher, a term equivalent to the better-known Japanese Roshi. I shall refer to Master Sheng Yen as Shifu throughout most of this text. In order to present us with an orthodox retreat, Shifu brought with him Guo Yuan Shi, a monk in residence at the Chan Center, New York, and at the time of writing, its abbot, who acted as organizer, disciplinarian, and leader of chant, a man whose kindly charm won all our hearts. Also present was Mr. Ming Wei Wang, an interpreter whose skills at rendering long passages of speech with eloquence, precision, and wit earned him our profound admiration. The team, as we called them, certainly fielded a strong side, and it became up to us practitioners to match them with our responsiveness. In that Shifu taught us so thoroughly, I feel we did not entirely fail to rise to the occasion. I acted as guest master. And with that introduction, we turn to the spoken words of Sheng Yen. This is entitled Arriving in Wales. He says, I expect some of you can understand that getting to Wales has been somewhat like undergoing a Chan retreat. In the last 3 days, we have spent over 50 hours on planes without a proper night's sleep and with complete uncertainty as to whether we were actually going to arrive. Yet here we are, and I can see you are all ready to begin. Everything is arranged. You all have your places marked and your jobs allocated, so we must certainly start at once. You know that I intended to come here last year, but at that time we were not aware that I had to have a visa. Then this year we got the visa, but when we arrived at the Taipei airport we found it had just expired. What an obstruction. The only thing to do was to fly at once to New York, where it would be easy to get another visa. So we spent a few hours in New York and got on another plane. Would you believe it? The plane developed a fault before takeoff and we all had to disembark. Of course, we were very tired even by that time. You can understand that at the moment, the only thought in my head is sleep. I shall not say much now. Actually, I should tell you that we almost gave up the idea of coming. But then I thought of all the work you have done, John especially, in arranging this event, and I felt that on no account could I let you down. So here I am. This is then a very precious occasion. Despite numerous obstacles, it has come about. I hope each one of you will treasure the opportunity and work hard. Now you tell me, how many of you have never experienced a retreat before? How many of you have done 3 or more retreats? Has anybody participated specifically in a retreat in the Soto tradition or in the Rinzai tradition? Has anybody read any of my books? Oh, 2 of them. Great. You will know that Zen, Chan in Chinese, is not for the purpose of getting instant enlightenment. Rather, the practice itself is the goal. Most people think that seeing into one's own nature, using some method of instant enlightenment, is a convenient and speedy path. But this is a severely erroneous understanding. Of course there is enlightenment, but mostly there are false enlightenments. If you are very anxious to get enlightened, you can precipitate a kind of mistaken experience that you call enlightenment. that can be very sad. After so much difficulty in getting here, I have not come to give you enlightenment. That would be absurd. Rather, I have come to see whether it is possible to pass on to you the methods whereby you can improve your practice. It is like eating. You cannot expect to be filled by taking one mouthful and munching once or twice. We need to ingest a whole meal until we know we have had enough. Even when people have an experience of Kensho, have some insight, they still have their habit patterns. They still have their karma. We all know this. Don't think there's anyone who hasn't heard this before. You don't fly off with the unicorns and sporting dolphins all of a sudden. The problem everyone faces is our habits of mind, tendency to judge ourselves and others, our impatience, our separation, the fact that we get caught up in the little dramas of the world, the drama in politics. Nothing more healthy or important than a steady, faithful practice. Practice for its own sake. The attitude that Cheng Yan recommends, I recommend, so many teachers recommend, is to set aside your ideas about what you're going to accomplish. Of course, things will change. But you don't have to focus on that. In fact, leaving that aside is the way. It says we need to ingest a whole meal until we know we have had enough. We're going to use the methods of practice to benefit the body and mind. That is the most important thing. There are a number of methods one can use. In the first interviews, I'll discuss with each one of you which method is best suited to your needs. To begin with, if you are in doubt, just count the breath. The other methods are silent illumination, which is similar to shikantaza or the just sitting method of the Japanese Soto school. There are also the Wado and Koan methods. We'll talk about these. Just as we had problems in getting to Wales, so too will you encounter obstructions in the practice of your method. These arise from your mind and body, not from elsewhere. One simply has to persist and continue with practice. Be prepared for struggle. We have 6 days ahead of us, and even to recognize the obstructions is, in itself, the beginning of true practice. In this small house, we are hidden away in the mountains. The moment is auspicious. Now sit. It's a good point that he makes. Just to recognize our obstructions is the beginning of true practice. It's one of the things that hits people when they first take up Zazen, is how incredibly unruly and difficult the mind is. We realize how filled we are with what Cheng Yen calls vexations, with delusions. It's good to see that. Going on, This is his first talk on day one. He says, "First of all, we must understand that in Chan there is no fixed method. Each retreat is unique. It adapts to whoever is present, to the environment, and to the time. Since this is my first visit to your country, we will work out together the best way to proceed. Maybe the style of New York or Taiwan is not suited to a small farmhouse in the hills of Wales. We'll see. To begin, let us set out some basic rules for the retreat. No talking. Of course, for some jobs, a few words need to be spoken, especially in arranging the cooking, for example. But apart from such necessary interactions, there should be no conversation whatsoever. Talking about how you are or how you think the retreat is going is of no help to practice. It's just a distraction, and it wastes the energy of a focused mind. No noise. Keep yourself tidy and quiet." So helpful to the sesshin when people move quietly through the building with light feet. No thinking. For some tasks, you need to consider what you are doing or plan the sequence of your actions, but for many jobs, thinking is not essential. Just let the hands do it. Let the mind be on whatever you are doing. Just do it. Don't evaluate it or compare yourself with others. Put your mind on the job, on the eating, on the toilet. You do not need to judge what you are eating. All you need to do is fill the stomach to have the energy to practice. No looking at others. It is of no value to you to see how others are doing or coping with problems. On a retreat, to consider how others are is to fill the mind with inessential concerns. It's not your business. No looking about. No listening to pleasing sounds. Keep the senses quiet. If you look around at the scenery, you'll start judging it. How beautiful the sunshine. Oh dear, here comes the rain. Likewise with sounds, bird songs, tractors and sheep bleating. Treat them all the same. Pay no attention. Of course you will see and hear, but do not intentionally look about or evaluate the sounds you hear. The aim is to stop the sources of discrimination. No analysis of whatever is said in the talks or instructions. If I say something that is helpful to you, fine. If not, forget it. Maintain your separateness. Each of you is quite independent. Don't pay attention to whoever is sitting next to you, whether they are complaining or happy. In this world, all you know is yourself, nobody else. And in fact, you don't know yourself either. The best thing on retreat is to keep the mind filled only with practice. Be on time. There are plenty of toilets, so there's no need to be late when the bell rings or the boards are struck. Indeed, unless you are sick or there's some special reason, you should always be early and ready to sit on time. The whole day is practice, whether we are sitting, doing exercises, slow or fast walking, doing prostrations or cooking, listening to a talk. The whole focus is on the practice. We've all learned the schedule and been taught the signals for the various events. We'll talk about posture and methods individually. I'll only use the Kyosaku if you wish for it. It may be valuable when you're sleepy or distracted, but you must ask me. I won't use it unless you ask. Of course, we use a different system here. We did in the beginning. The Kyosaku was used by request, but it's something that people sometimes, should I ask for it? Should I not ask for it? And so Roshi Kapleau made the decision to just do it ad lib. Of course, if you don't wish to be struck, you can ask for that, and we won't strike you. If you feel you're being hit too soft or too hard, you can write the monitor a note. If the monitor is hitting you on the bone in the shoulder or catching the neck or something, let them know. and they'll adjust. Then he says, now we can start. As many of you already know something of the benefits of meditation, we can have a valuable training period. Let us have 6 memorable days together. Interviews, that is Doksan, will begin this afternoon. And we have time to take up his day 1 evening lecture. So we'll go right into that. I have only been in your country for a day, but already I have learned something about you people. You have a love for ancient things. This house is hundreds of years old. You treasure the old worm-eaten beams and the crumbling stone walls, the bent timbers of the old barn. In Taiwan, we are busily engaged in pulling everything down and building up the new. In Chan, we treasure the old while making it always new. So it is appropriate here that I should talk to you about one of the oldest Chinese scriptures. I don't know what was happening in Britain in the 6th century. In China, it was the time of the Liang dynasty, and Buddhism was already established, and Chan was developing. Yet in those early years, the Chinese did not distinguish too clearly between their own Taoist ideas and those of the new religion. So in this text, you will find a number of Taoist ideas which give a particular flavor to the Chan of that period. Text is so ancient that we are not sure who wrote it. He is known as Wang Ming, but that may be a pseudonym. His surname was Song, and he served as a government official, but when the dynasty ended, he became a monk and took his vows under a Chan master. His intellectual ability implies that he studied theory with numerous teachers. Wang Ming emphasizes the unification of mind as especially important, and this goes back both to old Taoist notions and to the Indian idea of bringing the mind to a single pointedness. He calls his poem Calming the Mind, and it is a valuable one for beginners. It describes the method of practice and how to do it. Wang Ming advises us to let go of our anxieties and vexations and to let life unroll naturally. Let's look at that. Letting go of our anxieties and vexations. So often when difficulties arise, we immediately go with worrying about how long they'll last, trying to make them go away, trying not to notice them, look away from them. The way is right in. We need to see our anxieties and vexations, but not spend our time turning it over, criticizing ourselves, worrying about what's going to happen. Stay with this moment. If we're anxious, maybe the body is tense. Maybe there's a bad feeling in the stomach. But instead of turning away, just feel it. What's here right now? It's a Zen teacher who says, what if this is it? Don't use your difficulties as a reason to abandon this moment. In practice, we can take on everything. Roshi Kapleau said, everything is grist for the mill. When we do that, then, in Sheng Yan's words, life unrolls naturally. There isn't a problem. Sesshin is difficult. You have to accept that. If we're willing for it to be difficult, then it's not so difficult. He goes on, in the poem, mind can be used in 2 senses, and as we shall see, the first usage refers to the worried mind of discrimination, the tense mind that needs to relax. It is this mind to which the title refers. The title again is Calming the Mind. Yet when the mind becomes relaxed, what is the mind then? This is the second usage, a mind beyond illusion, discrimination, and the need to relax. One of you remarked how difficult it is to concentrate. Which mind are you trying to concentrate? We must be certain that we speak here of the mind of illusion that needs to become calm in order to see clearly. It is the mind that discriminates and then favors one thing more than another, that always creates tensions. Our true mind doesn't need to be concentrated. There is concentration. There's also openness. They work together. It's not blocking things out. It's opening to what's here. Dropping our preoccupations. Says, when you try to calm the mind, there are two important principles to observe. We need to be clear about these. The first is to cease worrying, and the second is not to be concerned with knowledge. For your practice to be effective, you don't have to worry, and you don't need to understand intellectually. We would like to be able to concentrate fully on our method, be it counting the breath, silent illumination, or working with a koan. Yet the more we try, the less concentration we achieve. Our minds simply do not obey our intentions. We try to stay with the method, but before we know where we are, the mind has drifted away into something else. Our attitude is wrong somewhere. We feel frustrated and lost. This morning, I asked you to leave behind for the moment all those people and events with whom you have been relating. We should stop thinking about the ongoing problems of our lives and relationships. Of course, these things are important after the retreat. We'll take up such issues again. But here and now in the retreat, we should let them go. Keep your distance from the past and the future. What is it that makes this so difficult? Mostly the thoughts that arise are concerned with the past or perhaps with the future that will arise as a result of the past, and this involves discrimination, judgment, comparison, and memory. It provokes an anxious tension that rises in strength according to the topic that comes up and your own disposition. It is vital to practice putting all this down. Just put it down. Leave aside all past, all knowledge. With practice, you can let it go. When you can do this for as long as you wish, you have found a certain freedom. Please do not misunderstand me. It is not that knowledge and experience are to be avoided or condemned. They're to be valued, but we need to gain control of their use. If we leave them to ramble haphazardly through our heads, sowing worries and agitation, then they become a burden to us, a vexation and an obstacle. Some people spend all night worrying. Others put away their thoughts and sleep soundly. We need to cultivate the art of putting aside our memories, our concerns, and our intellectual knowledge. It is something that with time, with practice, we get better at doing. It's not a choice to put aside your vexations until you have the ability to do that. It takes time. It takes acceptance. And it is a fruit of practice. So much good can come out of sustained zazen, especially when we're doing it correctly. not trying to steer when we're not in control. So simple. Practice is so simple. And of course, it's so difficult. But at every moment, there it is. No matter what's happened in the past rounds of sitting, right now, enter in. That old Japanese saying, 7 times down, 8 times up. Have faith. Each of us can bring our effort, our sincere effort, and then whatever happens, happens. So good to be here together. It's a chance to work. Just look directly. Our time is up. I'm going to stop here and recite the 4 vows.